Right, hello everybody. Here we are with a special extra, or I had 3 words for it. I can't remember what the third was, but an extra episode of the Picky Bastards podcast, where we're going to be talking about the Mercury Prize, which is, I'm allowed to say, apparently Britain's best music prize.
You're not actually. Sam vetoed that a few minutes ago.
It's
when you
Britain's
weren't
best music prize.
It's a music prize.
It's a music prize.
Just a prize.
It's Britain's best music prize. So I'm here at Picky Bastards with the 2 normal Picky Bastards, Nicholas Parker. Hello, Nick.
Hello.
Mr. Matthew Paul.
Hello.
And we have welcomed back our very special guest, Sam Atkins, from last time, but as he's now been in here twice in a row, I don't know if he counts as special anymore.
No. Just average now.
That just makes me feel really...
Do you still feel special?
I want to feel special.
Okay. Sam is our very special guest on this very special episode of Picky Bastards. So it's the like I say, the Mercury Prize, where each year there's 12 albums shortlisted. One takes the prize, and the shortlisted albums this year are Arctic Monkeys' Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, A Fever Dream by Everything Everything, Everything Is Recorded by Everything Is Recorded, I think that's what it's called, Highest Hope by Florence and the Machine, Lost and Found by Georgia Smith, The Ooze by King Cruel, which if anyone listened to the last episode will know what I think about it, but never mind. No Shame by Lily Allen, Holiday Destination by Nadine Shah, Who Built the Moon by Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, Novelist Guy by Novelist, Your Queen is a Reptile by Sons of Kemet, and Visions of a Life by Wolf Alice. Don't worry, we're not going to bore you for 3 hours and go into detail on every album. I've set 4 questions that I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes each to talk about, and I'm going to be a proper dictator about it, so get ready for that. And I'm going to start with the question, who do you want to win? And I'm going to give each person 2 minutes to answer that question, and I'm going to start with Matt. So Matt, who do you want to win? Don't interrupt me. I'm a dictator today. Your time starts now. Who do you want to win?
I want Everything to win.
Oh.
I thought this was a great album. I've always liked Everything, but I think this, for me, was their best album so far. And since I've been listening to all of the albums, it's the one that I always want to go back to listen to more than any of the other ones. It's always the one I'm like, I'll start with that one, and then maybe I'll listen to some of the other ones afterwards. I think it's just, I find it very... I've always liked the way he sings, but it really, in this one, crystallized how it feels very personal. Like, it's his really high-pitched voice, for some reason, feels like he's just whispering in my ear, even when he goes really loud. And so I always feel like it's very... Especially when I have my headphones on, and I'm like walking around, it feels like he's just right there, singing at me. And I always really liked the lyrics and the way they kind of talk about modern life and how weird and fucked up everything is in a kind of funny and satirical way. And so I guess I like a favorite song on the album. I struggled as well to pick one because I think the majority of the songs are really good. And so that's probably one of the other reasons why I think it's, compared to some of the other albums, it's the best album of theirs. It's not uneven, it's solidly good. But if I had to pick a favourite song, it's Run the Numbers or Good Shot, Good Soldier. Is that 2 minutes?
Is that you? Well, I'm going to make you talk for 10 seconds longer so I can pay my
10 seconds longer?
My really obnoxious alarm at the end, because if I don't get to play it, I'll be very upset.
That's all he really cares about this entire
3, 2, 1.
The lyrics are great. And,
Brilliant.
He's so proud of himself.
You're really putting the dick into dictator, aren't you?
I'm doing my best, mate. I'm doing my best. I can't stop it.
You can't stop it now.
I can't stop it.
Great.
Right,
there we go.
I've learned how to stop it.
Work your phone, come on.
Right, I'm not going to say what I'm going to say, actually, but I've got a feeling that might be the only time we hear that album on this first question. I'm going to go to Nick second.
Cool.
Nick,
Okay.
2 minutes start now. What do you want to win?
I would like Everything to win, please. If it's possible, I would appreciate that. Everything's album, A Fever Dream, is the best work they've done so far. I was a big fan of the last one as well, the name of which now escapes me, but it was a great album. They are producing something that I think is quite unusual, which is basically a dance electronica album. I don't mean pure dance, but like a danceable album that's recorded absolutely exquisitely. Like it's just stunningly polished recording quality all the way through. And that's something I think very special, actually, something you don't get out. A lot of in-the-box recording happens when it's electronica and dance music, which is fine. But to do something like this is really unusual. So I thought that was a major plus for this album. There's a great example of this would be my favourite song on the album, which is Big Game, which I think is a third or fourth song, which has this breakdown section in the middle where they recorded it evidently in some massive like hall or something, and it just has this insane explosion of sound over something that's basically a danceable song. So again, to me, that's unusual and really worth something, really worth this award in point of fact. I thought the song construction in general was really good, so that's really cool, and they've done that all the way through in the last album as well, and the one before it as well to some extent. So that was great, and I've completely got past now the very, very idiosyncratic voice that the guy has, that the main lead singer has in the band, which a lot of people find quite off-putting, and we may hear that from others, I don't know. But I personally find it to be really interesting now and really fits with the weird song construction. So yeah, fantastic album. Also from Manchester, which is a great thing, so deserves the award.
Will you stop all getting
Yes.
to 10 seconds before 2 minutes, please? It's very frustrating.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We all timed it perfectly.
I mean, I'm nearly there now anyway, so just one more time,
Oh,
just so
come
you know.
on.
Yes. Now, how do I stop it?
Pull down.
Done it. Brilliant. Okay, well, that is two votes
Such high tech
for...
here. He's holding his phone up to the microphone to try and get the siren sound.
This is the most fun I've had in weeks, people.
Oh,
so.
Jesus. Right, so...
Just taking a sip of my beer and we'll carry on. I'm going to go to Sam, probably to complete a hat-trick of a certain band
see now,
going on
let's
previous
see.
conversations. But Sam, your 2 minutes start now.
I don't know what you mean. I definitely also don't want everything to win this award, which I actually do. I think that I've loved the band as well for a very long time, and it's by far their best record. I think every single track on it gives you something more every time you go back to it. I think it's the oldest album on the shortlist in terms of release. So it's been pretty much a year, and I go back to it now and I get new things from each of the songs. You hear new things in the lyrics, and you hear, like Nick was saying, the way it's produced is just so interesting and so dynamic. There's not a song on there that you could ever say is like boring to listen to. It's like just it's such a thrilling listen from start to finish, and I think the big moments like Can't Do and Desire and these big like kind of arena filling songs still have this kind of personable style to them, and in the way that he performs the lyrics, and the way that it's kind of just it's from a real place, even though it is so big, and I think it's exactly the sort of album that should win the Mercury Prize, and it totally deserves it. So
Nice.
yeah,
Nice, nailed it. I've not even got.
Perfect.
There's not even enough time left for me to go for the.
Aw.
So I don't get to do my alarm this time.
Tragedy.
One thing I'm going to say, you both two of you have just mentioned how the sound production on everything is fantastic. I just want to apologise if it's not on the podcast tonight, because we're having a few technical problems with Matt cutting in and out.
Okay, we can probably compensate.
Just in
Alright.
case, I'm just pointing it out, because while we're talking about amazing sound production,
Yeah, we should do our best here, but Matt is 4,000 miles away.
Matt's on the other
so
side of the world, and then
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
just shoved a bagel or something down his throat, so it's not helped.
That's been the problem, yeah.
Right, okay, so I passed the alarm over to Nick.
And your time starts now.
Well, I'm happy to say I don't want everything to win. Anybody who has listened to many of the podcasts won't be surprised to hear that I want Nadine Shah's Holiday Destination to win. It can't be a surprise to many people. I mean, I introduced it as Nadine as an artist I love, and I used this album to highlight why I loved her so much. And there's nothing else on this playlist that's changed my mind, even though there's some really strong albums on there. But for me, there's nothing that convinced me it was more deserving than Nadine Shaw. I mean, sonically, as you've just said about Everything, it's a really original, varied album. But I mean, Holiday Destination does that all the way through. And I also think it's a really brave and honest album. I love the way she sort of takes on the anti-immigration stance in our country at the same time as telling a really personal and relatable narrative that I really related to myself as well. And I also think she's made a kind of album that pretty much nobody else has pulled off so well in the last few years. There's been lots of albums that have tried to talk about the times we live in and have struggled to really do a good job of it, and she just does it all the way through. So yeah, and also talking about Everything, that being their best album, this is her best album. She's had 3 really good albums now, but I think it'd be really good to see her win. But on the other hand, it would really surprise me to see her win. I think she's this year's Kate Tempest, really. I think it's a really personal and powerful album. It's really political, but I don't think it'll win because of how political it is. I think the Mercury Prize sometimes shies a little bit away from the really political albums that are making a real stance. So I think, unfortunately, it'll miss out, but I'd absolutely love to see it win.
And again, with 10 seconds to go.
Should we change it to a minute and a half for the next round?
All right, fair enough. Let's ramp
I
up
was
the
joking.
pressure.
I was joking, but we can.
Just so you can cut people off.
No, that's fine. Okay, great. So,
well, we'll have a little chat about our opinions of who we wanted to win. Although obviously there wasn't a lot of variation there. I'll start by giving my thoughts on everything.
Yeah.
And I did really enjoy this album. I hadn't listened to it until I listened to this playlist, and even though Nick had,
I think I played you one song off it on vinyl, didn't I? Because I bought it on vinyl. It was so
and I think you also showed me a
well
live performance that I was quite into, like on KXP or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the one thing that held me back from this being my favourite album on the list, even though it was quite high, was I feel like there's somewhere in between I see a lot of Radiohead influence on some of the stuff they're doing, even on his vocals, the Tom York vocals. I do. There's some
I don't at all.
I do. Go back and some of the early parts of the songs and maybe even more Tom York solo stuff than Radiohead. But I see that real influence. But I think on a couple of songs for me, they did what a lot of people who are influenced by Radiohead do, and they went a bit too far, and it became a bit Muse-like. Only a couple of times, and only a couple of songs, and I can't. There's one of the songs near the end of the album which was a little bit too like pop rock anthem for me. But there's a couple. I don't want to slate this album at all. I think it's great. There's the one.
Stav, too late.
Something
Stav now wants to slate you.
No,
in return.
I actually see what you mean.
Thank you.
And I absolutely love it. But I've spoken to people who were really big fans of like their first album and have literally compared the latest stuff to Muse.
Well, I'm glad it's not just me.
Specific thing.
And to Radiohead as well, instantly?
Not Radiohead. I don't know what you're talking about that. And it's especially with their live show.
Yeah.
Like, me and Nick actually went to see Everything this year.
Yeah.
And we absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And I actually did speak to a few people who said that they got that kind of like rock of I don't even know what you'd call it. It's that kind of like gothic rock vibe from some of it. And that's not what I got from the album when I listened to it, but I can kind of see what you mean.
I mean, I think it's only on a very rare occasion. I think there's a couple of songs. The song about the soldier is absolutely fantastic. There's a couple on there I do love the album. The opening song, Night of the Long Knives, brilliant as well. And it is a great album, don't get me wrong, I'll be going back to it a lot.
It does really interesting things, that song. Just that as a small example of how clever they are with their song construction. That Night of the Long Knives, it has this massive burst of sound, da, 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 this huge chord comes out, right? It's off the beat though, it's off the one, which I absolutely love that. It's just simple little things like that, which I think in that respect I can see a Radiohead connection because they do clever things about song construction. I don't really see any other song.
I think if you spoke to this band and asked them I think they would tell you
there's not many bands who are guitar bands
biggest influence, but I just think they're doing more of the Radiohead stuff on, and actually maybe it is the Tom York solo stuff more than it is. 'Cause
Right.
it's some of the beats that they use and stuff. But that's not no bad thing, obviously. But yeah, obviously.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Radiohead's like your favourite. So.
Yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
honestly being negative about this album. I do look. It's just what I was trying to get at is that difference between a band like Radiohead and a band like Muse, and how easily that kind of music can go both ways.
Right.
And just on a couple of occasions, just to try and put some negativity on the album that you've all just chosen as his best.
Yeah.
But all right, well, what I was aiming to do was get everyone to give opinions on the other albums.
Yeah.
We only talked about 2 albums there. Nadine Shaw, anyone want to make
about
any
Nadine
comments?
Shaw?
I know we've talked about it before.
Matt, what's your opinion on Nadine Shaw? You want to talk about it again? We talked about it when we did
I had a tough time not putting it in to anything because it's really, really great. And so it was a really tough pick between this and everything, I think.
Top 2 then, right.
Yeah.
Possibly my top 2 as well. Yeah. Sam, you've not commented on Nadine Shaw on a previous podcast. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I really, really did. It might have been one of the ones that I picked for one of the.
Okay, well, we'll leave that then. We'll leave that for now.
You can't have somebody say something positive, can you?
Spoiled that surprise for me.
Sorry.
But yeah, I did actually really enjoy it.
Cool.
I do think though there's minimal chance of it winning.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I think there's minimal chance of both of these
winning.
winners. I don't think either of these will win the prize, unfortunately. I'd be really happy with both of them, but I don't think
the only person who knows the odds at the moment is Sam, who looked up the odds a few minutes ago.
Have you got the odds on the albums?
I feel like I should wait until the end.
Okay, fair enough. At the end, we'll find out who the betting people seem to think is going to win. So,
all right. Well, we're going to move on to the next question.
Yep.
The next question is, which album do you think will win?
Yep.
And I'm going to start with Sam this time. So, Sam, go for it.
So for me, the clear, obvious winner here would be Georgia Smith. She's been one of these artists that has had quite a lot of buzz for so many years. She's been appearing on various lists and various awards, and everyone's like top tip for the next year. And much like Sanford did last year, I think she's released an album that is kind of good enough that it warrants that early hype. I think for me personally, it might not be one of the best albums on the list, but I think it's still a great example of kind of her talent and her ability to write these sort of songs. And I think as a body of work, it's really great. There's some songs on there, Blue Lights, and there's another one called Lifeboats, where she kind of pushes her own sound to this point at which I think is exactly what she should be doing with her voice. She had some earlier stuff before this album that I really, really liked, and perhaps that wouldn't have worked alongside the rest of it. So I think what she has produced makes the most sense for me as a winner here. She's kind of the quintessential Mercury winner, I'd say, right now.
Okay.
Brilliant. 30 seconds to spare. So I've just made a decision that I'm taking it down to a minute and a half from now on, because I've used my
You don't want us to be relaxed at all.
twice. No relaxing. I'm going down to a minute and a half, and I will now be going to Mr. Nicholas Parker to tell me who he thinks will win. Your time starts now.
Okay, so I think the most likely winner is the Arctic Monkeys, and I don't think it's guaranteed, and I don't want it to happen, I'll just point out, as is probably obvious from the last recording, but I could well imagine them doing it, because they've done something that a lot of bands who get a lot of critical acclaim do, which is reinvent themselves in a totally new direction that seemed to be very experimental compared to what they were doing before. They've kind of come through to a second generation version of the band after a few albums which were fairly consistent, although nothing in my opinion as good as the first one, but several albums that were basically rock albums. Now they've done this, I'm hesitant to say super weird album, because I think that might be really giving it more praise than it deserves. Just an album that has some oddball elements to it, I'll put it that way. But ultimately, as everyone already knows, I think the album is a band killer, actually. I think it kills the Arctic Monkeys as a band and creates just one songwriter, sort of solo artist with a backing band in a cheesy nightclub in Vegas in the 70s. That's what the album is. But that doesn't mean it won't win. So yeah, that's what I go with.
10 seconds ago.
Can't hear the buzzer. You can't hear the buzzer.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go next.
All right, I've got this.
Interestingly, I'd already chosen the orders, but I'm going to go next.
And your time starts now.
So I think either the Arctic Monkeys or Georgia Smith will take the prize. Honestly, though, I'm leaning towards Georgia's Lost and Found. I said on the last episode that I thought Arctic Monkeys would win it. I still think there's a good chance of that, but I'm leaning towards Georgia Smith because I think she fits the pattern of the last few winners. So this is very similar to what Sam's just said, but when I say it fits the pattern, I think that the last couple of winners have had hugely hyped albums. They've featured on a lot of stuff before, and people have been talking about them. They've gained a wide audience, particularly in a younger market, and they seem to be the winners they've been going for recently. So Georgia, yeah, she fits this pattern. She'd also, in my mind, as much as I like the Arctic Monkeys album, I think she'd be a more deserving winner. I think it would be unfair to say she was only winning because she fits the pattern. I think this is a really good album. I think she mixes genres really intelligently, which is not something I can say about the Lily Allen album, which is also on this list.
That came out of nowhere.
Well, it's important to say, because I'm not going to get to talk about Lily Allen much, but she doesn't do that. There's elements of dancehall on this album, there's elements of R&B, there's elements of trip-hop, there's elements of soul, there's elements of hip-hop, and for someone so young, she's got a really amazing songwriting ability. Teenage Fantasy, one that stands out, was written when she was 17, and I can see Nick going towards the microphone, so I'm just going to get in the point that Blue Lights is absolutely fantastic. It's not too political a song to get past the Mercury judges, but it's just political enough.
And he
give her music real credibility. I'm done.
He fails.
I'm glad you were the first one to trigger the alarm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's because I've got the most interesting shit to say, people.
All right, so now Matt's up for this 1 minute 30 seconds.
Right,
and
Matt. The album you think will win, Matt. Go.
Cool. So I think it's going to be Georgia Smith as well. And I've been thinking this for a while. She was the first one that kind of jumped out when I first saw the list.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty much for the same reason everyone's talked about before. To pick some things that you guys haven't said, I think they appreciate or will appreciate the fact that she's an independent artist, which some of them aren't. She seems to be doing everything kind of on her own terms. And she has this whole romantic story of she did a school project, put it on SoundCloud, and then Drake became her number one fan. And then this year she's doing collaborations with Kendrick and stuff. So she has all of the hype, all of the romance, all the story that they will fit perfectly with the publicity for Mercury. It goes really well for them. And beyond that story, the album's great. It's a really, like you guys said, it's a really solid album. Not my top two, but probably number 3 on the list. And as this is her first album, I think she's seen Sam said, she's tried a bunch of different other stuff out, but she, instead of spreading herself too thin, she seems to kind of draw herself back in and make a more cohesive unit of one album, which I think it was really good. And
that's time for Matt to finish.
Silence.
Right.
Okay.
She's great.
She's great, he sent to it. That's what he's got at the end. She's great.
Yeah.
I can't stop it.
Great.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the albums we think will win. So we've got a few Georgia Smiths in there, a couple of Arctic Monkeys. So there's again not much comeback on that. But Nick,
I can talk about Georgia Smith a little bit. Yeah. I wasn't totally in love with this album, I've got to say. I think some of the comments you made about it being quite new, I know nothing about the artist at all. As usual, I haven't done my research, so I just don't bother. But I do think that the production of the album was very, very amazing vocals, I felt like, all the way through. Really powerful and convincing vocals. But I felt like it seemed like it was sort of sitting on top of the music. Like the vocal was sort of sat on top of a load of session musicians and stuff had been built in. And then Georgia Smith had come in at the end and sort of sang over it. So, I mean, and it would be really uncharitable to use the word karaoke, but it is of that style in the sense that, it is a piece of music that's been set first, and then it's not been integrated well in the mix process. So it does sound to me like somebody singing something that's already been recorded over it. So that's a big problem I felt. I didn't hate it. I thought, again, vocals were very good, very strong, but as an album, I don't think it worked that brilliantly. So that's why it wouldn't have been in my top half.
I think it's an example of your headphones maybe being a little bit too good. You spend like £600 on headphones and you can... Because... no.
Yeah.
Next time you hear it now, all three of you will hear it now and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The vocals are sitting on top of the mix, they're not in the mix.
Right.
I think that's one of the worst things you've said.
Say that again, Matt. You cut out a little bit. Say that again.
I think that's one of the worst things you've said.
Yeah, it is one of the worst things you said.
I'd put that up with was it Mount Erie?
Yeah.
That's one of the, just as bad.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'll take it if you want to be abusive. That's fine. But no, I didn't think it was that great for that reason. Yeah. So even though the vocals were very strong. So okay,
right.
Next one.
We're going to move on to the next question. I'm going to start this time.
Yep.
Because it's the one where we get to be miserable. So I thought I'd go first.
Yeah.
So this question will be which would be the most upsetting winner for each of us individually. So I'm going to go first.
Starts now.
So despite how much I dislike the King Cruel album, there's one album that I think would be more upsetting winner, and that's Who Built the Moon by Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. Now,
Sam's just gone wide-eyed at that comment.
Most people will know that my first ever gig was Oasis. I've been a massive fan of Oasis. I've been a fan of Noel's previous albums, but one reason, the least offensive reason I think Noel would be the worst winner is because I like this prize because it sometimes takes people's careers to a new level, does something new for them. The second reason is because this is an absolute dog turd of an album. It is absolutely terrible. I mean, coming from someone who grew up on Oasis, I just think this album is beyond embarrassing. I think he's tried to make a little change of direction for pretty much the first time in his career, but he's just ended up with a cheesy, cliched mess. It makes Glenn Hansard lyrics from an earlier episode look poetic and nuanced. The song She Taught Me How to Fly has a cliche in every single line of the whole song. And probably the most enjoyable song for me, which is called Be Careful What You Wish For. I mean, not cliched at all. Sounds like it was written over the track that a keyboard would give you if you put it on the guitar setting. I have been learning guitar for about 2 months, and I think I could nail that song and maybe do a better job of it. So yeah, I'm sorry, Noel. I've been a huge fan. I hope you don't listen to this because I love you, but this album's terrible.
Now that is possibly... That's possibly a winner in the sense that you just timed it 1 minute 30. You had 1 minute 30, you spoke 1 minute 30, and completely slaughtered the album. So,
yeah.
Wow. Okay, who's next on that one?
So we're going to Matt next.
Okay, Matt, you have 1 minute 30 seconds.
Cool.
And time starts now.
Now? Okay. So I'm going to pick Arctic Monkeys. And it's not for anything really new to say compared to like what we talked about in the last episode. But I think if you're going to win this prize twice, you should have something special. And I always think...
Yeah, I can see that.
If you're going to win this prize, it should be your best album. And this is their worst album. So I just don't get how they could win, but I do like Nick's points about how it's different and it's critically... like a lot of critics liked it a lot. I could see it potentially going that way. And that... compared to some of the others, this actually has a realistic chance of winning, so that's one of the reasons I picked it. And like I said before, I'm excited by the fact that they're trying new stuff. I just don't think this album is the album that they've figured stuff out. I think in the future they might come up with something cool, but this album is an experiment, and an experiment that didn't work. It's like that weird mouse with the ear on the back. It just doesn't look good. And yeah, they're just not using the band either. It's a solo record, as far as I'm concerned, and not a good one. So that's how I feel about the Arctic Monkeys. And I will be very sad if they overlook some of the other really good albums.
Okay, your time is up.
We are both timing on point there.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Well timed. Yeah.
I mean, we could. Because we're having problems with Matt's recording, I only heard the last line of what... No, I didn't really. We heard more than that, but... Brilliant. Okay, so that's one for Noel Gallagher, one for Arctic Monkeys, and we're going to go to Nick for his most upsetting winner.
Okay.
Starting now.
Okay, so I would have a really obvious choice of the Arctic Monkeys would be really, really upsetting, but I just think that's too obvious. So I've decided to go with Noel Gallagher as well, like Fran. I thought this would be incredibly disappointing if this album wins. I will say, though, that I've never been a fan of Noel Gallagher or Oasis. They've never done anything I've liked. But this album, I've just written down, throwaway, bombastic, rubbish was my summary of the whole album. And really, it's quite amazing to me how many cliches he managed to cram into every single song. There are lyrics like, she fell right under my spell, which is profound. You know, it really, really moves me. And some of the songs sound like status quo as well, which is not a good thing in my opinion.
They do.
So it's also really, really badly recorded. It sounds so muddy and like lost in reverb, and I just can't pick. It's not clear. And for somebody who writes anthems, and that's what he really is focused on, this has got no anthems in it that I can tell. And I will say, though, to be fair on the guy, I wouldn't really like it if he did do anthems. I'm not really an anthems fan, but he's just failed in even his own criteria for what success is, I think. I can't believe he thinks he should win this, let alone anybody else. So no.
He probably doesn't think
not my favourite. So there's nothing redeeming about it.
5, 4, 3. Right, I'm not even going to go to the on there. I think the first question after we've all talked about most upsetting winner is going to go to Sam, because he's not looked that pleased while we've been talking about Noel Gallagher.
But still, Sam hasn't done his most...
No, I mean after that.
After that,
I'm going to go to Sam straight away. But first of all, Sam, what would upset you the most if it won? Go.
Before this, when I'm doing the Mercury Prize, I always rank all of the things anyway. So there's 3 at the bottom that I really did not like. Obviously, you could tell Arctic Monkeys from last time. I'd also mentioned the Novelist album. I really, really didn't like that, but we'll cover that in a minute because nothing is as bad as that King Cruel album. And I still haven't recovered from the fact that you made me listen to it. I think...
That was my fault. I think it was me.
I still wonder. I'm at the point where I still don't think I've actually listened to that album. Like, every time I'd gone back, I'd be forcing myself to. No other album on this shortlist did I have to force myself to listen to and force myself to go, I could be doing anything else but listening to this. And I think also because he would be an actual chance of winning as well, that makes it worse, because the idea of actually seeing this album win and then lots of people go and listen to it and then go, why is this one, is quite a scary thought.
Actually, it scares you. I love it.
By far the worst on the list and should not win.
Stop getting so close to the end of the timer, people.
We're perfect.
Well, before I ask Sam about Noel Gallagher, I'm going to just come back on the King Cruel thing, because that was obviously my second choice. I think why I didn't go for it is, again, what I said about, even though I don't really want his career to be launched, I'd rather him win it than Noel. And I think even Noel would say that in a way, because what's the point in Noel Gallagher winning this prize right now?
Yeah.
I mean, especially for...
Although it's got to be about quality, hasn't it? I know what you're saying, but that's why Radiohead never win it, I think.
Yeah.
That's the logic of Radiohead never winning it. And Radiohead's albums have been better than other albums who've won it before.
Yeah, so what I did when I chose my most upsetting winner was separate the 2 worst quality albums and decide which one would upset me the most, and it would be Noel. But I want to go to Sam now.
I like Noel as a person from what I see him on interviews now. I think he must know.
No, I don't think he'll want to win.
He doesn't want to win this.
No,
and nor does he think his album's any good if he's got any sense.
He probably thinks it's good.
Sam, go for it.
Sam, tell us what you think of Noel.
Well, I have on my sheet in order the albums, and the Noel Gallagher record is actually probably my second favourite on the list.
Wow.
And I know that sounds ridiculous.
Are you sure your list isn't upside down?
There was only a few of the albums that I actually hadn't heard before, and I've been a big fan. My partner David, he's huge Oasis, huge Noel Gallagher fan, was a huge fan, and so we've been to see him twice now. We went to see him earlier this year
on this album as well.
For this album, which I think is my favourite of his 3 solo albums, and I don't know if anyone else has actually listened to any of them.
Yeah, I've listened to all 3 of them. I like the first one. The other 2's it's been a steady decline for me.
That's just like, nope.
I think all 3 are great, and I personally really liked that on this album he sounded like he kind of
Status quo.
unabashedly went, I'm not going to try and just sound like myself anymore. I'm going to pull from all of these other influences. Yeah. And it's funny that you say something like, it sounds like status quo. I think that's intentional. I don't think that's like an accident.
Yeah.
I think he's pulling from...
Yeah.
He's pulling from all
It's
of these.
tragic.
Like,
I think that he has tried to do it. He's tried to do that. He's gone 60s. He's tried to make a change in his direction, and it just has failed.
I personally really like it. I think there's some really great songs on there.
What's your favourite?
And Black and White Sunshine is my favourite song.
As long as you don't say cliche, whatever it was called.
But
she taught me how to cliche.
There's the song on it, Holy Mountain.
Holy Mountain, that's the one.
He wrote that and said the reason he released it as the single from the album is because his kids loved it. Right. And they used to sing it all the time. And he went, this will be great for that generation. He knows that it's not...
So, sorry, how old are his kids?
Like, really young.
Exactly, so this is not an album for adults.
They're still fetuses.
This is the thing. I do not think it should win the Mercury Prize.
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
I don't think it... I was... When they announced the nominees, it was the most surprised of everyone. I thought... I didn't even think he would even go, I would like to submit this, or whatever you need to do to get on the list.
The labels do it for him, I think. I
actually thought that Liam Gallagher might have got nominated for it after his album was so successful and did quite well critically. But yeah, for me, I actually really like it, and I really liked it when I went to see him play these songs.
Was it a big
live.
surprise to hear two people saying it was the worst?
I'm surprised on this list with some of the albums, but
Anyone got any comeback on any of the others? I mean, I don't think there's much to say to Matt about Arctic Monkeys. I think he's we all heard that last time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be upset to see it win. I would in a little way in that they're already a huge band, but it wouldn't upset me too much. And then, the others were both Noel Gallagher. King Cruel, I don't think any of us loved it, did we? So let's move on to the last question for now. So the last question is, what was your favourite discovery while listening to this list? And I'm going to start with Mr. Nicholas Parker.
Okay.
Go.
My biggest discovery of this was... I can't even believe I'm going to say this. Florence and the Machine...
wow!
You hate Florence and the Machine. You see. So let me just. I've got a few moments to say why. I think lyrically, this album was interestingly complex, and I kind of was drawn into some of the narratives she was telling about, like the one about where she's driving across the city and her old neighbourhoods and looking at the places that she grew up and the sort of dreams she had at the time and that kind of thing. I thought all that was really. Was much more interesting than I was expecting, and I was able, because I was forced to by this playlist, this is one of the reasons I do this, to get past some of the things I really have a problem with about the band, which I still do have a problem with, which is her actual singing voice is almost unbearably warbly. It drives me insane. I cannot stand it, the way she does this huge bombastic like tra-la-la all the way through the songs unnecessarily. It's incredibly irritating, and it was just really good to see that there was some depth in it, in the songwriting, but sad in a way as well to see that was offset by the fact that she was actually singing over in a way that was quite off-putting. So I warmed to it, but I was still basically not in love with it, but it was still a big surprise because I was shocked in myself, as everyone else is as well, that I even got into it at all. So.
I'm surprised you even listened to it, to be perfectly honest. And I've just spoken a little bit, so I can just do that. But okay, cool. That's good. We'll comment more at the end. I'm going to go to Sam now. Your best discovery while listening to the list. Go.
Yeah, we mentioned it before. My best discovery was Nadine Sharp.
Okay.
I think that's
correct.
As I mentioned before. There was only a few on the list that I hadn't listened to before. But I just found the whole story of the record really interesting, and it's a politically charged record that still manages to feel very personal, and it's nothing's too big in the sense of it's not trying to tell any of these. It's not trying to tell this overall like political message. It's more how those things affect an individual and how it affects real people, and I've really enjoyed that. I found her kind of performance on it really interesting and really different to most of the stuff I would listen to. And on this sort of list, I can totally see why you'd want her to win. And I think the album would be a great winner for all of those reasons. So it's probably one of the only ones that I'd probably go back to of the new ones that I've listened to. So yeah, for me, definitely.
Fantastic. I'm very happy to hear all of that. So we'll go to. I'm going to go to Matt now. Same question, Matt.
Cool.
Favorite discovery? Go.
My favorite discovery was the Sons of Kemet. I thought it was a really interesting fusion of styles, and I really loved the mood it established throughout the album. I love the concept of the album of just like refuting our reptile queen and instead naming all the tracks after like women that he idolized. And I've been a fan of this guy unknowingly for a while because I liked one of his other bands, Melt Yourself Down. And I like started listening to this and was like, this sounds very familiar. And then I had to Google, and then I found out it was the same guy. So but this is his personal project as opposed to him being in a band. And so he's like the saxophonist in it. And I just thought the rhythms were really like interesting and complex, but they weren't disorienting. Like, say with like King Cruel, the rhythm in it is like just all over the place to the point that it's just almost trying to confuse you. This, I felt like it was like real fun and engaging. And I've been doing a lot of writing recently, and for me, it's perfect music to listen to because it's always there and it's driving me on the entire time without being distracting. And my favorite song is My Queen is the Mammy Phipps Clark, because it was very ska-like. There was a lot of elements of the specials I could see in it. It had like a...
Oh dear.
Done.
We're enjoying it though.
Vetoed.
Way over,
Yeah.
but you know, you could have gone for another minute then, I think, couldn't you?
Yeah. I really like this album.
I would like to talk about that album after my favourite discovery. It's not that one, but that came pretty close.
Okay, so your time begins now.
Okay, well, we've already heard what Sam thinks of this one, but my favourite discovery was Novelist Guy by Novelist. There were a couple of potential answers for me. I mean, there was a few. Even when I say discovery, some of them are just albums by bands I hadn't heard for a long time and stuff. But now I've been hearing about Novelist for quite a long time. He's always mentioned as a grime artist, and I think that's fair classification. But I just enjoyed how he had some like really dirty sounding hip hop beats on this album. I've not heard much like that for a long time. I think songs like ... and Whole Nine Yards are just really intense songs that I can imagine be really amazing live and a lot of fun. But there's also a really great storytelling element and a good political weight. The song Stop Killing the Mandem is probably the ultimate example of this for me. It's a really strong song about the killing of young black men across the globe, but also sounds like a party tune, which I think will appeal to quite a wide audience. Songs like Gangster and Afro Pick, he tells the story of how he pulled himself back from like a life of crime and how he's trying to show another way of success to fans, which I thought was really interesting. So yeah, in general, I found it a really exciting album, especially given having researched and found that he self-produced the whole thing. He wrote it all himself, and I like that there was no guests, which is rare on a hip hop album. So yeah, I mean, it's a far from perfect album. I'm not gonna sit there and say it is. There is a few tracks that are weak. I think you can tell it's an early album. I'd be surprised to see it win, but I'll be watching his career. I like him. I'm done. That was good timing. I'm good at this minute and a half shit.
Yeah,
I can't do 2 minutes, but a minute and a half, I'm great. Right,
So we've got a few we can talk through on those, I think.
I think what I've got to start with, if people don't mind, is what the fuck, Nick?
About
Florence and the Machine.
I know.
Amazed.
Yeah.
I know. I've always hated Florence and the Machine, and I still hate Florence and the Machine, as I said, for the reasons that I always hated her in the past. But this time I gave it enough time to get past that and hear what she was saying, and it was actually quite interesting.
I mean, I even said to you before when we put the playlist, we started talking about doing this episode, that my favourite thing about doing this episode that was you were going to have to listen to Florence and the Machine and Noel Gallagher. And you used both of them for answers, but...
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'll tell you what I think of Florence while we move around. I'm a fan of Florence. I've always been a fan of Florence. She's consistent. She's good at what she does, which is what she's done on this album. But I do not understand why this album is shortlisted for this prize. It's doing nothing new for her. It's standard Florence Fair and actually a bit more boring than some of her albums. I think there's not as much variation. So I like it and I'll listen to it again. But compared to her other stuff, I mean, it didn't do it for me. So I'm surprised to hear you choose that.
Well, I'm not choosing over any other because I don't know the others well enough.
But also, like,
voice so off-putting, I couldn't bear to listen to them.
I like that you've chosen it because she's, what you say about her lyrical content, and that is completely true. So it's good. I'm glad to hear. But
she should be a songwriter. And other people should sing her songs. That'd be great.
No, she's an incredible performer.
Yeah.
I think she's one of my favourite performers.
Okay.
Like of anyone. And I absolutely love Florence. And personally, I think this is her weakest album. It's her most. It's weirdly personal in terms of and very small in some parts.
Yeah.
And she goes into detail on things. She's usually very, very abstract and avant-garde with her songwriting, and she's talking about, even if she's talking about very specific things, she does it in a way where it's very big, and there's elements of that on stuff like Big God and stuff. That's the song about someone not texting her back. And it's this insanely huge pop song with choirs and all this drama. But then there's other stuff
it's not a production I have a problem with, I will say, though, just to interject for a second.
No.
I don't... for example, the Everything is a band which has huge production and a really idiosyncratic voice, which some people find really off-putting. So I can see how there's a lot in the similarities in that. It's just that his voice, I've managed to get past that. I can now enjoy what he's doing. Her voice, I just cannot take it. It just drives me up the wall.
To me, that's all part of her sound. And it wouldn't... I don't think it would make sense without her sounding like that.
Do you think some of what you're saying is why she's been shortlisted this time? This is a bit more personal. The songs about We've All Got a Hunger and talking about...
Yeah, I think The End of Love is one of her best songs.
Yeah, I really like Sky Full of Song as well. I thought that was good.
Yeah, and I... Personally, it's my least favourite of her albums. But... and for those reasons and for the way that it's not a huge departure, you can see why... it probably shouldn't have been nominated, and I was a bit surprised. I think it's similar to how when the XX got nominated again, and you think it's not really that different to before, and what is the prize for? And
still amazing.
I'm looking at Fran now.
Still amazing. I still love. I love this album as well.
Yeah.
It will be and is already my most listened of any of the albums on this shortlist. Yeah, I'm amazed that you...
Yeah, I know, that is pretty amazing.
Nick.
What about you, Matt? Any thoughts on Florence?
For me, it was boring. And I felt like she was trying to write these kind of personal songs, but trying to make them stadium anthems at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of just, confusing and didn't engage with it at all.
Right.
She's written good stuff in the past, but I, to be honest, haven't really stuck with her since the first album.
Yeah,
none of it's really connected since that. She's lost me, and
I wanted to talk about novelists for a minute, actually, if you don't mind me interjecting about that.
Yeah, go.
I was not impressed with novelists really, and felt like it was. It felt like a second division player of this genre that I don't know that well, but just felt like it was another, just doing something that had already been done from this genre, and some of the. It seemed to be short of ideas as well. I thought particularly the song ... was particularly weak example because it just felt like it's like he had nothing to say. Am I wrong?
think it's a mix for me. It's a mix of songs that do have something to say, and there's quite a few that do, and then some that come in and are more. At the end of the day, this is a party genre. I do find it in some ways unusual.
So everything now. That's a party album that has complicated lyrics and means something.
Nobody would go to a party and put everything on. I'm sorry, they wouldn't. That'd be the miserablest fucking party you could ever go. It's a great album, but no. Whereas Novelist is the kind of music that I think appeals to the genre that it's in. You will hear some albums where they're purely about guns, women, cars, and this isn't that. This is someone using the same genre and mixing it up and talking about different things. And I think I don't think like when I said what's my most exciting discovery, I don't think it's a perfect album by any means, but I will follow him because I think it's an interesting album. And I think he's doing stuff that I don't see in a lot of UK hip hop and grime. So yeah, I don't think it's amazing, and I wouldn't want it to win, but I did enjoy it.
Okay.
I know Sam was.
I think compared. The thing is it's obvious that you're going to compare it to the previous grime Mercury nominees, and I think. The last few years, the likes of the Skepta album, Stormzy's album, they were both incredibly good. And even the J Hus album, at least I felt with him, at least he was trying something different. And this, I just couldn't get. The whole album just sort of melded into one. I don't feel like even those songs that you're picking out, I couldn't tell you how the actual song goes, or I actually
dot. That's how.
I found that a lot of it was actually quite dull.
It is repetitive. I'll give you that.
I really like grime, and it's like it's always exciting and it's always interesting, and I just didn't get any of that from it.
Well, it's all right. You can both be wrong. I'm taking it. Matt sounds like he's similar opinion.
I have a similar. Yeah, I reckon I could take half the tracks and just put it in an old Lethal Bizzle album, and it would fit.
Oh, Lethal Bizzle.
Yeah, and to me, I like some of that because it reminds me of when I first got into grime.
Yeah.
But the genre has been elevated, and he is still kind of following, I guess, what he was listening to, but not his peers, I think.
Well, I think that's one of the things I kind of like about it, as well as that it is back to the roots in some ways, and I think that's not always a bad thing. I mean, even though I've just slagged Noel Gallagher off for going back to the 1950s, I think Novelist goes back to some of the, and maybe that's my age and stuff, but some of the grime that's out now, including Skepta and Stormzy, I couldn't really get into, whereas Novelist I could. There was a bit more to it for me, but yeah, I do get the criticisms. Anyway, so Sons of Kemet. Any other opinions on Sons of Kemet? Because I was a big fan of that as well.
I liked it. I liked it.
It wasn't like the standard jazz album that I kind of thought would be nominated for the Mercury. I thought it was really interesting. I think if the opening song, which I can't remember the name of, and the closing one, which is Your Queen, is Doreen Lawrence. I think if there was more songs like those throughout the album, it would have come closer to being in the top few for me, because like the last one particularly, when he's talking about I don't want to take my country back, I want to move my country forward, just great. I can imagine playing it, turn up in an EDL march and playing that as loudly as I could in their faces and really enjoying it. So yeah, Sons of Kemet was great. I was pleasantly surprised with that one. What else do we have?
Well, we have not talked about altogether.
What was yours? No, what was Sam's?
I think Nadine Shah.
Nadine Shah. So we kind of talked about Nadine Shah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We'll run through briefly what's left and just get a little.
We got to be super quick. I think we should see if we can do like the 1-2 liner on these.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there's only 4 albums we haven't touched on.
Okay.
Or 3 maybe. Anyway, one we talked about last time. Everything is recorded.
Yep.
I will say that it's probably my second favourite on this list, and it grows on me all the time. Anyone else want to put anything on that one, or have we covered that?
Same as I said before.
Great.
Yeah, same as I said before. It's not a coherent album for me, but it's lots of good songs. That's as simple as that. Cool. If you want a punchy response, tweet length response.
Tweet length. All right, Lily Allen, No Shame. Anyone?
For me, it was a return to form slightly. Not all the way. First 2 albums were great. Probably should have been Mercury nominated. Third one was absolutely horrendous. This one's in between.
Yeah, right. I mean,
I would say I respect the fact that she had some. I don't know much of her other work, but I respect the fact she had some honest sort of lyrical basis for the songs, which I thought was quite interesting. Yeah. It was musically pretty flat though. Nothing really engaging in it to me. So that's why it's kind of washed over me.
Matt.
I think similar. It's a super uneven album. There's some songs that are as good as her first songs, but also some absolute trash on there. Like when she's honest, she's at her best. Yeah. Some of that.
Similar opinions on it. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Lily Allen. That I think she makes good pop tunes and she's an interesting person. But for me, there's a little bit too much throwaway stuff here. There's a few really good songs, but then when she does like the dancehall songs and stuff like that, it's just a bit too stereotypical for me.
It doesn't really work.
Yeah, it's just like a standard dancehall that she's put a lyric on top of, which didn't work. But when she does like songs like Free, they worked.
That's about all you're allowed, because we had 1 minute 30 on the ones we really wanted to talk about. You can't
That
be
was
doing
like
like
3
1 minute.
lines, man.
I know. That's too
Right,
much.
we've only
Two
got
lines,
one
I think.
left. We've only got one left. Visions of a Life by Wolf Alice. Anyone? Matt?
First album was better. Much better. First album was one of my favourite albums of that year. This was too sprawling, not as tight, not as rocking.
Okay, I would say a couple of weeks ago I watched a YouTube program about Britpop from the 90s, and this band really wish they were on it, but they weren't. That's all I'll say.
Sam?
I knew of Wolf Alice, obviously, but I'd never actually listened to anything of theirs, so I genuinely didn't know what they sounded like. I was pleasantly surprised. I quite enjoyed it, and I probably would go back and listen to the first one if you say that's better. But I found the really heavy tracks a bit too intense compared to the really, I think, the great pop rock songs that were on there.
Yeah.
I feel like they're a pop band that think they want to be really heavy rock. Doesn't really work.
Right.
I'm with Sam on this one. I think this album's actually still growing on me. I'd ask you to come back to me in a week and ask me what I think about it again. I will still listen to it. I think there's a couple of great songs, beautifully unconventional and formidable, cool in particular. And yeah, like you say, they weren't what I expected of them. I was expecting a sort of folk rock band, and there's more to them than that. I like it, but
more dated and generic.
No idea what you're talking about when you say Britpop. There's nothing Britpop about them at all.
They wish they could be like one of those indie rock bands from the 90s and they failed.
So Britpop and Georgia Smith, you've just got so much wrong today that I feel like you should retire.
I'm feeling happy with my decisions right now. So.
Right.
All right, that's that.
That's us. So that's the Mercury Prize. It's on the 20th of September.
Do you want me to mention who the
odds? Yeah,
who's
go
the
for
odds?
it.
Oh, yeah.
Odds on favourite is, I'm surprised that there's a couple near the top, and the top one is Nadine Shah.
Ah,
is it?
Wow.
Sons of Kemet seems to be quite high as well.
Wow,
really?
Which really surprises me.
I mean, that means they won't win, just to put your hands on it. 20 days
King
before.
Cruel as well is quite high.
Yeah. I can see that winning.
But yeah, I'm surprised.
What was lowest? Do you know?
I can double check.
I mean, we'll need to riff in between while he double checks. Let's all guess.
The lowest is Novelist and Noel Gallagher.
Right. The ends.
But
yeah, I kind of thought you guys might have thought I only listened to the end. Seems I chose Noel Gallagher, Novelist, and Nadine Shah in my answers, but I didn't. I listened to the whole playlist. I promise.
Okay. Glad to hear it.
I think that's us. So thanks for listening.
Thanks again to Sam for a second time.
Thanks, Sam.
Glad to be here.
Our very, very, very special guest.
Yes.
And our very, very special.
And we'll be back with our normal playlist in a few weeks' time.
Yeah. See you soon.
Oh, bye.
bye.